Welcome back to the David Pakman Show. I am Jesse Dollamore, out of work stunt double for Jim Gaffigan. So yesterday, something happened that we've been waiting for many years, and that is an infrastructure bill to pass. During the Trump administration, it seemed like Infrastructure Week was every week, in perpetuity, materializing to nothing. And we passed less than we wanted, less than we need, certainly less than we deserve, but better than nothing. Reading from this New York Times article entitled, Senate Passes $1 Trillion Infrastructure Bill, handing Biden a bipartisan win. The approval came after months of negotiations and despite deficit concerns, reflecting an appetite in both parties for a long-awaited spending package. So the vote ended up being 69-30, which is telling that they were able to get nearly 20 Republicans on board. Even Mitch McConnell, in fact. The Senate gave overwhelming bipartisan approval on Tuesday to a $1 trillion infrastructure bill to rebuild the nation's deteriorating roads and bridges and fund new climate resilience and broadband initiatives, delivering a key component of President Biden's agenda. The vote, 69-30, was uncommonly bipartisan. The yes votes included Senator Mitch McConnell of Kentucky, the Republican leader, and 18 others from his party who shrugged off increasingly shrill efforts by former President Donald J. Trump. To derail it is the last part of that sentence, because it was indeed the MO. It has been the MO of Trump and the Republicans for a long time. I am still wary of what is happening. Of what's happening here. What is to take place? What Machiavellian motivations do they have for overwhelmingly, or for Republicans, it's overwhelming support of this bill? The historic investment in infrastructure is what I believe you, the American people, want, what you've been asking for a long, long time, Mr. Biden said from the White House as he thanked Republicans for showing a lot of courage. Because in today's day and age, it is courage to support an infrastructure bill that is desperately needed as our bridges and our tunnels and our roadways and our infrastructure is literally crumbling. Mr. McConnell, who publicly declared that his priority was stopping the Biden agenda, said in a statement that, quote, I was proud to support today's historic bipartisan infrastructure deal and prove that both sides of the political aisle can still come together around common sense solutions. If it were coming from anybody other than Mitch McConnell, I might believe it. The measure faces a potentially rocky and time-consuming path in the House, where Speaker Nancy Pelosi and a majority of the nearly 100-member Progressive Caucus had said they will not vote on it unless the Senate passes a separate, even more ambitious $3.5 trillion social policy bill this fall that could put the infrastructure bill on hold for weeks, if not months. And the method by which they intend to press the Senate to pass that $3.5 trillion appropriation is through reconciliation, where they could bypass the filibuster. They could bypass Republican obstructionism. Here is a little larger context, a little longer context of what Joe Biden said in his speech.
First of all, I want to thank a group of senators, Democrats and Republicans, for doing what they told me they would do. The death of this legislation was mildly premature, as reported. They said they're willing to work in a bipartisan manner, and I want to thank them for keeping their word. That's just what they did. After years and years of Infrastructure Week, we're on the cusp of an infrastructure decade that I truly believe will transform America.
So it was a good day for the country, certainly a good day from an agenda standpoint for President Biden. There was another side, though. That is the side of Mike Lee, Republican from Utah. He is Ted Cruz without a beard. Not quite as salacious. He's a little bit more milquetoast, but certainly an obstructionist. Certainly someone who is whose agenda is marked by his ability to not vote for things. That's his pride and glory, is his ability to not vote. Here's Mike Lee.
People are still digesting it. Members of the Senate are still digesting it. Look, we're in a period of great inflation, brought on by a period of almost unfettered, unrestrained federal spending. It bears no connection, it seems, to the laws of mathematics or to the amount of money that were brought in. This bill would spend a staggering $1.2 trillion. It would be yet another inflation bomb in an economy that's already been carpet bombed by other inflation bombs. I grasp the fact that it's difficult to put together a bipartisan package. I have nothing but respect for each of our colleagues who were part of this effort. I also am willing to acknowledge that the bill does a lot of good things and would help a lot of deserving beneficiaries. There are a lot of people who would benefit in a lot of ways from it. But there is a huge problem with it. It is not paid for. The reason that we know that that's a problem, that it's not paid for, is that the one consistent refrain that you hear from its sponsors, other than the fact that it's bipartisan, which we know and which we respect, is the fact that it's paid for. They'll say over and over again that this bill is paid for, but when you look at the pay-fors, they don't add up. When you have pay-fors that don't actually pay, you're just going to add to the debt and deficit, and this isn't a good time to be doing that.
It never ceases to amaze me and never will cease to amaze me. These Republicans who pride themselves now on how's this going to be paid for? How are we ever going to pay for this? We're saddling our children with debt. As though this is a household and debt means the same thing as you owning a car and having credit card debt. It is not the same thing. But two, where was Mike Lee during the Donald Trump administration that was running up $1 and $1.5 trillion deficits while things were good economically in the country? Where were you, Mike Lee? Where were you? It just rings hollow. Now listen, I would be lying if I didn't say that I'm a little nervous about the aggressiveness of the progressives in Congress, the squad, who I am almost universally a fan of. But if they push this too far and we get nothing, and they give the Republicans an excuse to back out and not vote for whatever conference agreement they come to on a bill, then we've lost. Then we get nothing. We don't even get the 1 or 1.2 trillion. We get zero, and we're back to square one with the infrastructure week after week kind of a situation. It's not good.
One of our sponsors today is Blue Chew, a unique online service delivering the same active ingredients as Viagra and Cialis in a chewable form and at a fraction of the cost. And they're giving my audience an entire month's supply for free. So if you think you could benefit from an extra boost of confidence when it's time, all you have to do is take a short quiz on their website. A licensed doctor approves your prescription. The medication comes straight to your home within days in a discreet package. No driving around to the doctor's office or the pharmacy. No waiting around. No awkward conversations with your doctor. All of Blue Chew's tablets are made in the USA. The entire process is just a few clicks. Go to BlueChew.com. The link is underneath this video. They'll give you an entire month's supply for free when you use the promo code PACMAN. All you have to do is pay $5 shipping.